I went and got this project off a customer's barn because he wanted it painted, and when I took it down from the barn, it turns out that his vane is no longer turning. I got it loosened up now, but it was really stuck in place. It took me quite a bit of work to get that thing loose. But yeah, I wasn't going to film this project because all I had to do was sandblast it and paint it. Well, I wasn't going to, my painter was. But with that vane not turning and being rusted up, I decided it's going to need some work. So we'll get to do a little bit of lathing with this project too. So I'll show you that part of it. Now this vane just sits on a shaft. It's a 10mm shaft. I don't work with metric too often. I like metric. I have no quarrels with it. Just don't see it very often. So it kind of surprised me that it was metric. But anyway, I want to put a couple bearings on there instead of just having it go up into this shaft that's been bored out. Because, you know, metal on metal, unless you can grease it all the time, is going to rust. And being on top of his barn, there's no way he's going to grease that thing very often. So originally I was going to see if I couldn't attach it to the lathe somehow, put it on the carriage and bore it out so the two bearings would go up in there. But I got to looking at how this thing was built, and I'm pretty sure if I cut these two welds off, there's one on each side of the square tubing here, that this piece in here will drop out of there or be able to be driven out, because this piece is definitely not part of this piece. This is a shaft stuck in a pipe. Yeah, I got that side cut out of there. You can tell that one definitely cut through. You can see the gap between the shaft and the pipe. Really good right over there above my thumb. But didn't quite get it in there far enough on this side, so a little more grinding. Keep this up and have the whole thing cut off. Yeah, I've cut all the way through there. And it still doesn't come out of there. So apparently it's either pressed into this tube or it's just rusted up from all the years. So I'm going to take my grinder with the cutoff wheel in it and just make a slit up this way. Probably putting a slit in it like that allows it to expand. Makes it real easy for that to fall out of there, but yeah, I'm cut all the way through. Alright, well, I've had enough of this. I'm going to cut these welds. Woof. Yeah, that ain't coming out. Yeah, we can make it however we want now. So, alright. I'm gonna go figure out exactly what I'm gonna do now. I looked through my used bearing assortment to see what I had. I always keep bearings if they spin at all. Never know what you need them for. And I found a 10mm and a 12mm inside diameter bearing. So that'll work good for the top and bottom. You know, use the big one down here and put the 10 up here. And then I'll I'll build a housing to go over that, but that also means I gotta redo this shaft too, which I figured I'd have to. Ended up cutting the whole top off of it, because if you look in the light here, you can see it. They cut holes in it and filled the hole up with a weld to hold that shaft in. And surprisingly, there's a center on the bottom end of the shaft. I find that quite interesting. Well, it's a beautiful morning, YouTube. Got down into the 50s last night. So I opened the windows and the doors this morning on the shop and dropped clear down to 60 in here. It's perfect. I'm loving it. So anyway, we're going to get started on some lathe work this morning. And it has been a long time since I've touched the lathe. I don't think I've made a lathe video since I had to start my new YouTube channel, which is what, back in early April or something? I know I've done a couple little tiny lathe projects this spring, and for the most part I haven't even turned it on, so feels kind of weird to be back at the lathe. Really been doing a lot of on-site work this spring, so I think I'm going to start with the housing that the bearings go into on this project. So I have a slug of 1 5/8 cold roll, and we'll put that in there and get set up and bore it out. Alright, so that one is 21 and that one is 20. Alright, there's 21, 21, 19, and 20. That's close enough for this project. I got in there a little ways, but it's really binding up. The chips aren't coming out. It's just not a big enough bore for me to start with that boring bar. So I'm going to go ahead and use an inch bit. I have this one. I got it from a machine shop that went out of business, and they ground down the Morris taper to a 1/2 inch shank down here so they could stick it in a chuck. It's kind of silly, but every once in a while it does come in handy. So that's a ridiculously long setup. But anyway, Morris Taper 2 drill bits are definitely on my list of things I need to add. I need a few more sizes. I can only have an 11/16 and a 7/8 Morris Taper 2, so need to get a couple more. 1.015. I want 1.185. So I got 170 thousandths to go yet. Not sure what I think about that grind either, but I'll keep playing here a little bit. All I'm going to do to make this shoulder for this is just set it there and make me a Sharpie mark there, and that's where I'll be stopping now. Going to be quick and dirty with this other bearing too. I mean, after all, this is a weather vane, so doesn't really matter, does it? I want it to stick out just a little bit past, so the end of the bearing is there. I'll probably stop like right there. That'll give me a little drip edge so the water run down and won't try to go back up and into the bearing. That is 1.201, and I need 1.263, so there's 62. I'll just shoot for 60 thousandths for now. Oh, 60. Oh, wait a second. Hey, it moved. Not perfectly round, or wasn't on it right? Well, it's bouncing around, isn't it? Alright, well, I'll take a few passes and get that about right. And oh yeah, that'll be right. Get it in there straight. Drive it in. Yeah, that should work great. Just tight, starting. That's what I'm after. Okay, so in theory this part is done. Well, you don't do that very many times in life. Not a bad guess. Anyway, make sure all the jaws are tight, and I'll probably change it. I'll just put a Sharpie mark there where I want to stop, and that'll be close enough. Very nice finish. 871 there, so I could take off, let's dial in another, take off 10 and see what that gives me. even tight. Son of a gun. There we go. That's working a lot better. Eight 850 exactly. So another 10. So dial in 5. Take pretty light cuts, I think, on this since I got that much stick out. Well, as always, my next to last pass was perfect finish, and my last one was a little rough. This shaft right here, this section is 0.474, and the inside of the bearing measures 0.475. It's 12 millimeters. But can't get it on, and I think I feel just a little bit of a bump right there. So hit that with a file real quick and see if it'll go on. Yeah, I don't feel it anymore, so. Oh, really? I'm beginning to think my inside and outside is different on my calipers. Well, hit it with a file. There we go. Yeah, I might take slightly too much off, but whatever. Okay, so that one fits there. That one fits there. Now we'll see if I can get them in the thing that's supposed to go in and see if they're in the right place. Oops. Let's see. Just by eyeballing, they're pretty darn close there. The bottom bearing is just hitting a little hard once it gets in there. You can see that dark ring. So I'm going to stick it back in the lathe. Hopefully I can get it close enough to take care of that. 32, 32, 33, and 33. So 2 of them are 32 and 2 of them are 33, so I think it's close enough for this. Yep. Well, I guess I should have moved you to a better angle, but yeah. So I took a skim pass, and it definitely took off that area where it was dark. But I'm gonna take another cut here, move it over 1/1000 or so. Bearings are in. This one's actually just won't quite stay up in there, but goes together superb. Oh, his whirly gig got a whirly now. Yeah. Push that in a little bit further, it looks like, but I may end up having to push it in and then put a little dimple with a punch right there to make sure it don't fall out, but pretty nice. Okay, well, it's quitting time today. I had to go off and do some other stuff for a while, so only worked on it for an hour this morning and an hour this afternoon, so it's not bad for a couple hours of work, I guess. So I'll see you guys tomorrow and we'll weld this together. You ever just had one of those moments where you feel like a complete idiot? So I've had this grinder for, I don't know, several months anyway. I don't know how long I've been using it. Changed the wheels on it back and forth between a flap disc and a cutoff wheel and a grinding wheel, who knows how many times. And tonight is the first time I have realized that it has this feature. I never knew that. So anyway, it is a gorgeous evening, so I decided to come back up the shop and work some more. And I'll call it a night there. Do some sandblasting on it tomorrow and hopefully get it painted tomorrow too. So we'll see. And that mockingbird is annoying this morning. Sorry, go throw a rock at it, make it move to another tree. Now for sandblasting, I usually use this gizmo. It goes on the end of my pressure washer, and this hose attaches to the suction here, goes into the sand bucket, which is really nice because you don't have to have the air compressor running to blast with. The downside is you have flash rust from the water, but it's not that big of a deal. And you don't have dust from your sand, and you know, there's a lot of advantages to it. It's really nice. So that's what I would normally use to blast, but since this is a tiny little project and I don't know how on earth I would hold the project and the wand and everything at the same time, I'm just going to use the cheapo little, you know, $15 blaster.